I would like to welcome everyone in this webinar. And today we are going to discuss how IoT is revolutionizing the building automation in India. And it is being presented by Dr. Majid Singh, who is the co-founder and CTO at Zenetic Solutions. So before we get started, I would like to reiterate some housekeeping items. So this session will be a 1-hour session broken down into 45 minutes speaker session and a 15-minute Q&A followed by. The questions from the audience can be typed into the Q&A section of the webinar panel at any time, and we will take all of the questions one by one at the end of the webinar. And at the end of the webinar, we will share the slide deck and the webinar recording for a later reference by all the attendees. And at the end of the webinar, there will be a short survey circulated to the audience, and we would love to hear the feedback from audience to those questions. So without taking much time, I would quickly like to introduce the speaker for the day, Dr. Majid Singh. He is the co-founder and CTO at Zenetics, and is an expert in embedded systems, data acquisition, AI algorithms, and energy efficiency. He has completed his MS and PhD from UCLA and his BTech from IIT Delhi. And in a previous role, he was also a professor at IIIT Delhi. So I would like to hand over the presentation to Dr. Majid Singh without taking much time. Over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Abhishek, and welcome all. This is the third in the series of webinars that Zenetics has started organizing in this overall broader space of IoT and building automation. So in this specific talk, I go a bit more into technology aspects of IoT and why those technology aspects of IoT are better than the technology aspects of the traditional automation system that serve building automation, which is via either a BMS or a BAS. Right. So I'll start with what are the challenges and opportunities in building automation systems. Right. I mean, I would assume that many in the audience are already familiar with building automation systems, but I'll just take a quick brief so that we are all on the same page. That globally, buildings are one of the biggest guzzlers of energy. 40% of the global energy consumption goes into buildings, and roughly 20 to 30% of this 40% goes waste because of inefficient operation. Right. So overall, we are saying that 10% of the global energy consumption is going waste, and this wastage could be plugged in if you automate the operations of different subsystems within the building, right? And 10% of the global energy consumption is a huge number that we are talking about, right? So there is a significant room for improvement, right? Now, when we talk about buildings, another interesting statistic is that of the buildings that would exist in 2050, right, 2050, 50% of those buildings already exist today, right? Which means that, let's say, I mean, yes, there will be new buildings that will be coming up, but most of the current buildings will also exist to operate for many, many years, many, many decades from now, right? Which means that, I mean, it's not justifiable to just look at automating the new building, but also to look at how do we automate or make the existing buildings energy efficient, right? And that is where sort of retrofits start coming in. That you are not, I mean, there are two different mindsets that we need to adopt. One is that we retrofit the existing operations of the building to make them more energy efficient, as well as we bring in the efficiency design philosophy, so that from the very blueprint stage, we start incorporating the thought process of making buildings energy efficient, right? Now, when we look at retrofit, largely the market serves you that, okay, you replace the existing inefficient equipment, right? Yes, that would serve well for many, many decades, but it's a very capex intensive thing, and the ROI realization is reasonably high, right? Versus, let's say, if you start operating your current asset in a more efficient manner, right, and squeeze out the 10-20% efficiency that you can, then perhaps that's a low hanging fruit, and sort of you can take it stage by stage, and eventually then at some point also replace your very inefficient equipment as well, right? And when we talk about automation in this space, I mean, the BMS systems are typically expensive, the ROI realization is pretty high, and sort of are existent in the large building space only, right? So if we divide the overall building ecosystem, right, we can think of it in two ways. There are small buildings or retail solutions, and then there are large buildings, which are, I mean, these large buildings can be, let's say, more than 100,000 square feet building, right? In the small building space, BMS systems just don't exist, right? Because the cost of BMS doesn't justify the ROI in these small buildings, right? While if you look at it at the small building infrastructure, you would have a lot of distributed assets, right? For example, let's say Domino's pizza chain, right? They would have 1,100 stores of Domino's across the country, or a multiplex chain, or a chain of co-working spaces like WeWork, or a chain of warehouses spread across the country, right? So typically, actually, this is a completely white space. There doesn't exist a solution globally that serves the automation needs of this specific vertical. If we go to the large commercial building context, which are more than 100,000 square feet, there do exist BMS systems, but they have their own challenges, of operations, etc. And retrofitting an existing building with the BMS technology that exists today, which is largely wired, right, is not really feasible, right? So because of that, even when the cost justifications may still exist, just the operational hassle around retrofitting the building with a wired solution would prohibit anyone from doing it if the building doesn't already have a building automation system. So before I go further, I'll request Abhishek to perhaps start a poll so that we can understand from the audience also what has been their experience with these building automations.
Sure. So the poll is launched now.
So there are a couple of questions in this poll. In the first question, we are seeking from the audience that, let's say, for a BMS with greater than 1,000 points, if you have seen such a BMS being commissioned, whether it is in your facility or you have commissioned such a system, what is your experience of how much time it takes to commission such a system, right? And the second question asks that if you have been involved in a BMS project, right, then how many of those BMS projects you have known, whether again it's your own building's BMS or you have commissioned some BMS that would have involved an analytics layer on top of the BMS. So another perhaps
Your responses are
5-10 seconds, and then we can close the poll. Okay, so we do have responses from roughly more than now half the participants. Abhishek, shall we close the poll and see the results? Let's share the results also, right? Yeah, so I think the results are what we would have also expected. In fact, it's a surprise to see that somebody is saying that they have commissioned or they have seen a BMS with more than 1,000 points being commissioned in less than a month. And we would also, love to understand, because our experience also has been because that the way BMS is designed, the commissioning takes a lot of time. And this is one of the challenges we'll discuss in the subsequent slides. And the second aspect, again, I think, an obvious answer that because most of these BMS are built as a standalone system where all the data is going into an offline system. And therefore, for somebody to run an analytics layer, you need to first connect these BMS to a cloud-based system. Yes, some of the large players in the ecosystem are already providing that cloud connectivity. But there is hesitancy around adopting that cloud connectivity, and that's where perhaps many of the BMS systems don't leverage the huge volume of data that gets collected. So I think shall we remove the...
Yes. Can you see it removed now?
No, it's still showing up.
No.
So Abhishek, we can still see the results of the survey.
Not seeing them. Is it gone now?
No, we can still see the results.
Can you try canceling it at your end now?
Okay, I think it's fine now. Yeah, so I think several of these challenges have anyway come out from what was shown in the survey as well. We already talked about that the BMS is typically suited only for large buildings. The ROI doesn't justify. The ROIs are not justified in the small footprint buildings. They are largely dependent on wired communication, and that is where perhaps commissioning takes most of the time, right? That you need to lay out hundreds of meters or perhaps thousands of meters of cable, right? And that is the most difficult part, right? And in fact, that is what makes the retrofit very, very challenging. High upfront investment. So because you have to, the whole commissioning is so challenging, the mindset is that if I am taking on this beast, might as well take it on fully, right? Rather than taking it stage by stage, right? So rather than saying that, okay, which components are critical and I should do it now and which are good to have and perhaps I can defer them to a later stage, one would take on the whole elephant and say that, okay, let me take the whole beast now, and that increases the upfront investment. Largely on-premise deployment and difficult to maintain. Both of these aspects come in because typically all this data gets wired into a BMS room in a building, and the data is sitting in one computer, right? One, that is where lack of analytics come into picture because that data is just sitting in SQL DB on that computer. And some of the insights from the data also tell that, okay, which subcomponents of the system are not working, right? And because those insights are not being able to be, are not captured by the installers themselves, they don't know when to come and service it, right? And therefore, often these systems are not well maintained, right? I mean, in our experience, we rarely see BMS after 1 year being fully functional. Some points here or there are still not working properly, right? And the third thing also relates to the disconnected system, that their source of such a wealth of data, a huge, humongous amount of data gets collected from all of these hundreds and thousands of points in the BMS. But it's such a waste that this data is not being used to decide the control actions in an automated manner. And rather the BMS is manually expecting someone to do set points across the whole system, right? The only thing BMS would facilitate is that, yes, someone sitting in one BMS room can do set points across the whole building and they don't have to move across. But there is a lot more that is possible, and that is just left out by virtue of, I mean, these being disconnected systems, right? So that is where IoT plays a major role, right? What is IoT? It's a short form of Internet of Things. What essentially we are referring to is a system of interrelated, interconnected devices that are able to collect data, transfer that data, and then perhaps then some intelligent decision making happens on the data that is being collected, and then that decision making translates into some actions being taken again via these connected devices, right? So these devices are both sensing devices which are collecting data, as well as control devices or actuating devices which are performing these control actions as well. And these devices are connected devices such that the data can be assembled across from all of these devices. Intelligent decision making can happen, and then the control of these devices can also eventually happen. Right? So we talked about that retrofitting a BMS is a challenge because it's completely wired system, right? So what's an alternative, right? The alternative is, can we make it a completely wireless solution, right? When we go to wireless, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Okay, there is a Wi-Fi network that already exists. Then why not utilize the Wi-Fi network, right? But many of us would know that there are challenges in exploiting the existing Wi-Fi network, right? Perhaps the IT guys of that building want to separate out the IT and the OT side of things, right? And they don't want to mix that into a single network, right? The other challenge is that any Wi-Fi based device by definition is a power hungry device. What it means is that you can't power it from simple battery. You have to plug it into a power socket to keep that device functional for months and years, right? So what's an alternative? Can we create a wireless mesh which is low powered also, and that is self-healing, fault resistant, and sort of which creates a silo of its own, so that the security aspects are being taken care of and you are not mixing it completely with the existing IT network, right? So at Zenetics, we have used this wireless mesh, which is open source from Google, called OpenThread, right? And by the way, three big giants across the world, Google, Apple, and Amazon, have come together to create a standard across these wirelessly communicating devices called Connected Home over IP, and they are translating that into Project Matter, and that also at an underlying layer uses OpenThread. So we are one of the very few companies in India, but globally OpenThread is taking a lot of adoption. We are one of the very few companies that has taken a lead in adopting this technology. this battery powered sensor simply runs on two AAA batteries, can be put into ambient environment as well, right? So one of the things that BMS completely misses out is that it doesn't go to the actual areas where you are controlling, let's say, the HVAC for, right? So only if those areas have room thermostats installed, which is again a rare thing in the BMS systems or even in the HVAC systems designed in the Indian context. Typically, the DDC in the BMS room would, in a typical BMS would sit in a AHU room and is only looking at the return air temperature fed from all the rooms in the zone that are served by a single AHU. And I mean, one is not really looking into whether the occupant in each of those rooms is getting the necessary comfort or not, right? So with these battery powered sensors, even in the existing buildings, you can simply latch on these sensors in the wall, anywhere in the room. The building can still be operational. They would connect back to a parent, which is typically a power device, and is then relaying their information through a multi-hop resilient network back to the gateway. On the bottom left side, you can see a typical deployment where the square nodes are the routing nodes and the circular nodes are the battery powered sensor nodes. And you can see that the square nodes are densely connected with each other. What it means is that even if one of the routing nodes goes down, the whole mesh is a self-healing mesh that the child nodes of those routing nodes would then connect back to any other routing node, and these routing nodes will then recreate the whole mesh among themselves, such that the whole network is still resilient, even if, let's say, part of the network gets powered down or part of the network goes down because of some reasons or the other. Right? Very easy to retrofit, right? You just walk into the building, commission these battery powered sensors in the zones where you want to monitor, and put in these routing nodes at an appropriate location above the false ceiling, and that's it. You start getting ambient temperature, humidity, luminosity, PM2. We now have a whole variety of these battery powered sensors: PM2.5, CO2, AQI, pressure, temperature, humidity, luminosity. I already talked about. I mean, adding another new sensor is a straightforward thing once the whole wireless mesh already exists. As a second thing, what we built is a wireless DDC or a wireless PLC. You can think of it that way, right? So it's a card. Now this is not battery powered. It's a card which is powered device, which has analog and digital inputs and outputs, and to which you can connect standard field devices, right? So you can bring in any standard 0 to 10 volt or 4 to 20 milliamp sensor, or 0 to 10 volt or 4 to 20 milliamp actuator, right? Or you can bring in any standard NTC, you can bring in any digital input, or you can bring in any actuator which has to be controlled on a digital output. All of those field devices can be connected to this wireless DDC or a wireless PLC. And this wireless PLC or DDC can then be connected back to the gateway, right? Few things which are really nice about this control card versus, let's say, a DDC. One, it's completely wireless, right? So even in an existing building, you go to an AHU room, you simply install this. You don't need to lay out cables to connect this back to the gateway. It will wirelessly connect back to the gateway. Because it's a power device, in addition to performing its own function, it will also act like a routing node for the rest of the wireless mesh. So it adds to the overall resiliency to the wireless mesh that you are creating within the building, right? And the third aspect is that unlike in a PLC or a DDC, where you would program it with a specific ladder logic, right? Which would sort of, once you have coded it, that is the function it is performing in the field. And if you have to change that, you have to perhaps bring that device back or change that logic programming in the field. Here, this device is completely programmable over the cloud, right? You can we have bunch of input interfaces, which would be analog or digital input or NTC. And then we have bunch of output interfaces, again, could be analog or digital outputs. And you can programmatically from the cloud either create open source loops or closed loops across these inputs and outputs. And you can program the PID coefficient for this PID logic. You could connect any sensor and program the linear coefficients for converting the 0 to 10 volt or the 4 to 20 milliamp into, let's say, the CO2 value, right? All those things are completely configurable over the cloud, which means, let's say you have you are only using 2 analog channels and one of those channels goes bad, right? For a regular DDC, you would have to change the programming. Here, you simply shift the sensor from one analog input channel to one of the unused analog input channels, and you just configure it from the cloud, and that's it. You don't need to reprogram it in the field, right? So that's the beauty. That's where the world is moving, and that is how you can reduce the overall commissioning time. That you just take these battery powered wireless sensors, you just take these wireless IO cards, you commission them, you just install them easily. They automatically configure themselves and do wireless connectivity. And then you can do the configuration, including the logic that runs into it remotely, right? Now, again, one of the concerns people have is what it's a wireless system. What if the wireless breaks down, right? I mean, the answer to that is yes. I mean, typically wires break down much more often than wireless. But even if there is a concern on that, the PID logic resides locally here, right? So even if this device completely gets disconnected from the gateway, this is first level of redundancy that we have, that even if this device gets disconnected from the rest of the network, it will continue to function independently. And we also have built some mobile apps using which, let's say, somebody can go and connect to this device over Bluetooth and locally do some setting changes, right? This is in a way similar to somebody saying that I am providing an HMI in the BMS ecosystem, right? Now your phone acts like an HMI, and the app on the phone is communicating with this device to do the appropriate settings, of course, authenticated in the right manner, right? So you have these battery powered sensors, you have these wireless control cards, right? But then somebody would say that, look, I already have traditional subsystems that come with their communication protocol, right? For example, I already have some Modbus based devices. I already have some BACnet enabled devices, etc., right? Can you connect to those existing devices as well, right? So that's where this gateway comes into picture, right? Again, it's an open protocol based on Raspberry Pi. It's an industrial grade Raspberry Pi compute module. It's an industrial grade hardware, and it comes with standard interfaces like RS485 and Ethernet, through which we can support Modbus over IP or BACnet over IP or even SNMP protocol, right? So essentially, your traditional systems can then get connected via this gateway, and their data can also be pulled down. So how do these things come together? This is a typical system architecture, right? You would install some of these battery powered sensors. It could be vibration sensors, temperature, humidity sensors, pressure sensors, etc. They talk wirelessly to the gateway. Then you would install those wireless IO cards and your field devices. It could be a pump, it could be a sensing device. These get connected to via this control card, and you can start doing both sensing and control via this control card, and the control card also wirelessly gets connected to the gateway. And now you take the whole building, you divide the building into smaller zones, right? And then for each zone, you would put in one gateway, right? Which is independently creating its own wireless mesh, talking to the battery powered sensors or the wireless control nodes, or even the traditional devices over BACnet or Modbus, etc. in that zone. collecting all the data from the zone and then sending it to the cloud. And the whole notion of the building actually comes as a soft notion in the cloud. All of these gateways are independently talking to the cloud, and the notion of the building comes together in the cloud. So we have cut down all the cables that run from VDCs all the way to the backnet controller, right? And we have also connected. So we have really made this a distributed architecture rather than running all the cables from all the VDCs in the building back into the BMS room. We said that, okay, let's divide the building into zones. Let's put one gateway into each zone. That gateway creates its own wireless mesh, and we would create wireless VDCs and wireless sensors in that zone, right? And then these gateways come together as a notion, as a soft notion in the cloud to create the whole building, right? And now that you have all the data coming into the building, into the cloud, you can build your analytics layer very easily on the cloud, and you can do several use cases like much better automated set point setting and automated fault detection diagnostics, right? Again, answering that question that often comes in, that what if systems get disconnected? So there are 3 levels of redundancy that we have built into the system. The first is that if these IO cards get disconnected, they have their own local PID logic, which is running locally. The second is this wireless mesh is self-healing, right? So even if some of the nodes in the wireless mesh go down, the rest of the nodes are recreating the wireless mesh to make sure that it's a self-healing network. And the third level of redundancy is that if this gateway gets disconnected from the cloud, the gateway is also intelligent enough to then talk to these IO devices and sensors locally, buffer data locally, do some intelligence. Each of these gateways is like a mini computer, right? So it's doing its own edge computing, right? And is intelligent enough to perform several actions without being connected to the cloud. So we are actually giving 3 levels of redundancy at the IO card level, at the network level, and then at the gateway level. And all these things overall make this whole wireless IoT based automation also much more resilient than a wired network, where perhaps these wires get cut and then you don't know where exactly this cut is, and sort of then part of the system gets defunct, right? And another beauty is that you don't need a huge variety of devices, right? So you need a wireless IO card, you need a small number of wireless sensors, battery powered, that serve your use case. If your use case is only temperature, humidity monitoring, you only need one type of sensor. If you want to add on CO2, luminosity, etc., some of those sensors can directly get connected to this IO card also if they come with the standard analog or digital interface. Some of those can be bought from us as battery powered devices as well, right? So pretty much with these 2 type of devices and the gateway, you can connect whole variety of HVAC equipment, right? Whether it is a split unit or a ductable unit or a VRV system or a water-based system, and all your traditional systems as well. UPS talking over backnet, some of the systems talking over, or UPS talking over SNMP, some of the systems talking over backnet. So with very small and limited number of hardware pieces, you can serve a whole variety of use cases, and that's the beauty of this wireless-based IoT system. Right? And the whole thing is done in a plug-and-play manner, such that the commissioning, I mean, we can have an open challenge that if you can commission your typical wired BMS in X amount of time, you should not be taking, let's say, more than 15 to 20% of that X time to commission this whole system, right? So reducing that 80% of the effort in commissioning and removing all the cables gives you a significant cost advantage also, right? So the whole setup, commissioning is all done in a plug and play manner. Even now that the systems are web connected, you can even offer a value added top up service. I mean, for the SIs in the call, or if you have a BMS in your own building, you can then, for such a IoT based BMS, you can seek from the vendor that, look, I want you to maintain my system. I want to make sure that my system is up and running 100%, right? Not that you are getting the information about health of your system. Make sure that you ensure that the system is up and running and healthy all the time, right? So it's not just fault detection of the assets in the building like AHUs, CFAs, chillers, etc. But now even the fault detection of the subsystem, subcomponents of this IoT, I mean the actual sensors, wireless devices, gateways, can also be done remotely, right? And then we are also, because all this data is now coming to the cloud, you can, the SIs can create configurable dashboards serving different needs for their customers, right? So you can do different sorts of pivoting. There are lots of beautiful libraries of charts, widgets to choose from, and you can really, rather than those old-fashioned screens where there is a layout of an equipment and you are simply overlaying data on that layout, and every screen for every customer pretty much looks exactly the same. You can actually build beautiful dashboards that are not just giving raw data, but that are actually giving meaningful insights that are coming out of that raw data, right, to the customer, and the customer then feels happy about it, right? The whole stack is a complex stack running completely in the cloud, multi-tenant, right? So which means that you don't need a supercomputer to run complex analytical algorithms, right? It's a multi-tenant stack hosted in the cloud, and you get the benefit of multi-tenancy and pay very less. Today, as of today, Zenetics manages roughly about 200 million data points come to our stack every day, right? And the stack is built to scale up to 100 times of the scale, right? So essentially, this is how an IoT-based solution is coming as an alternative to a traditional BMS, right? You take these battery-powered sensors where 2 AAA batteries can last for roughly about 1.5 to 2 years. You take these wireless DDCs, they all create a resilient wireless mesh. You divide the building into zones, each zone being served by one industrial grade gateway. And then the notion of the zone comes together in the cloud, where you have a complex IoT stack which is multi-tenant, and therefore you pay less cost versus the capabilities that you get. And from commissioning perspective, the whole thing is such plug and play and easy to deploy that it's just super easy for even existing buildings to adopt such a technology, right? And once you have all this data coming into the cloud, right? We already give these use cases that we have these machine learning algorithms which serve two purposes, right? One, they are deciding the control actions, right? What should be the set point at different times of the day, etc., automatically based on the collected data, right? Ensuring the comfort of the occupant. And two, we use this data to detect anomalies upfront and to create this fault detection and diagnosis, integrate that with the ticketing system that comes together with it. So essentially, the whole anomaly detection algorithm opens up the ticket based on the data, and only if the data says that yes, the anomaly has gone away, then only the ticket gets closed, right? So why those tickets can be assigned to people to address specific fault, whether the fault has been appropriately addressed or not, again, can be derived back from the data, and the data can tell you that whether the person did their job properly or not. Right? So why is the world moving towards IoT-based technology, right? as many of these things are now amply clear, right? It's a hardware-like software intelligence solution, right? Completely wireless, so it reduces the cost, as well as it's very easy to commission in an existing building, right? It's a distributed architecture, right? You can, I mean, in a way, whether you divide a building into multiple zones or you're talking about one Domino store as one zone, right? The overall architecture is similar, right? So that way you can serve distributed small buildings also in a very similar way, the way you would serve a very large building or a very large campus as well, right? OEM and machine agnostic. So we have a whole library of Modbus devices that we already support, or BACnet and SNMP IP-based support. If you have any new device that you want to get supported over these standard protocols, it's a matter of a day for us to add any such device support, right? And because all of these things are now cloud connected, we run our analytics layer that results in more intelligent control as well as fault detection and diagnosis. And because the control is more intelligent, you get more bang for your buck, and therefore the ROI periods are much smaller versus a typical BMS system. The ROI periods would span over 12 to 18 months. So now I would like to just quickly take you guys through some of the analytics use cases, right? How deriving insights from this data can be useful, right? The first insight is about more intelligent control, right? So here in this case, you can, the blue line shows the control which is performed based on manual set points, right? At a specific time of the day, the equipment turns on, specific times of the day, it goes off, etc. Versus more intelligent control, where you model the thermal profile of the building based on the historical temperature and the outside weather, and basis that you decide when is the right time to switch on an equipment and when is the right time to switch off an equipment, and you can sort of squeeze in more energy savings there, whether it is an HVAC operation or the lighting operation, right? The second use case is around fault detection and diagnosis, right? So many of you know that in an air conditioning system, you would, I mean, if it's a compressor-based system, those compressors should show on and off cycles, right? I mean, that's a typical thermodynamic cycle that is happening within the air conditioning system, right? Now, if your air conditioning is not giving those on and off cycles, right? One, it is consuming more power. Two, it's an indicator of something bad is going to happen soon, and therefore you should perhaps take an action now, right? So by doing such analytics about the health of the system, you can do predictive and preventive maintenance as well as detection, right? I mean, all of you are familiar that for a three-phase system, you should try to keep balanced load across all the phases, right? So on the top is how the different currents were before an intervention happened, and when our systems look at this current imbalance, we would raise alerts to the customer, they would take proactive action, and only when the current is reasonably balanced across the three phases, that alert gets closed, right? So many of those things would get unnoticed unless you are looking at specific insights from the data. And even a prereq to that is unless that data is exposed to a system that has several of these analytics running, right? Temperature and are you maintaining the right temperature? I mean, right temperature or humidity for your occupants, right? I mean, it's a very common experience that you walk into the building, it's either too cold or too hot. It's never apt for your comfort level, right? And that's because systems are running at predefined set points, right? If there is a feedback loop that is going on, then that feedback loop can maintain better comfort for the occupant, by virtue of maintaining better comfort, you can reduce on the energy consumption. And if that better comfort is not maintained because certain equipment is not performing properly, you can actually raise tickets and proactively service those equipment, which are the cause of occupants not getting the right comfort level, right? With COVID coming in, a lot of us are now spending more and more time indoors, right? Even otherwise, we say that more than half of our life we spend indoors, right? So, and with rising CO2 levels, everybody, I mean, there are studies that show that the productivity, the mind doesn't operate properly if the CO2 in the ambient environment is too high, right? So, again, if you are monitoring these CO2 levels closely, you can start controlling your pressure unit appropriately at the right time, right? So rather than just keep circulating the air within your HVAC system or feeding in the pressure at fixed defined volume or interval, you can do it in a more intelligent way depending on the CO2 levels within the building, right? We at Zenetix felt that we have a responsibility towards a sustainable future, right? And when we look at what this sustainable future means, this stark number that 10% of global energy gets wasted in buildings was an eye-opener, right? We said that, okay, we need to build technologies to address this large global energy wastage, right? And that is what keeps us up and awake all through the night as well. We started off in 2014. The early backers were people like Rajan Anandan, who heads Google Southeast Asia. Eventually, there were ventures like Bloom and Pi Ventures that backed us. And in 2018, we became part of a larger Hero Electronics group, which is a multi-billion-dollar group, and that has set aside large corpus to build technologies for connected future. As I have already mentioned, we are one of the largest IoT companies in India, and within this space that is serving small buildings and retail, we are one of the largest across the world. We have more than 2,500 deployments, largely in India. Now we are expanding into Middle East, Southeast Asia, and exploring some expansions in the North American markets as well. More than 50,000 assets that are connected, and more than 200 million data points that come every day, and the technology is built to scale. These are some of the customers across a wide variety of verticals, all the way from very large 4-5-star properties to very small retail like Pizza Hut or Domino's. The whole distributed architecture, the whole plug and play system, right, makes it very cost effective and very easy to deploy across these broad variety of use cases. And that has been the reason for our success. So with this, I'll stop, and I guess we can take some questions and answers.
So we have a couple of questions. So there is a question from Manoj Gulati. So he mentions that the architecture that is followed by Zenetix is interesting, but as this system scales and redundancies grows, keeping track of batteries and the corresponding lifetime will be difficult. How do you solve for this in your architecture?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just related to batteries, it's about overall health of the system, right? I mean, this wireless mesh talks over an open 2.4 gigahertz protocol, which is globally an open protocol, and you don't need to pay licensing fee, right? And we know that within buildings, the noise characteristics keep evolving, keep changing, right? So in addition to, for example, from our temperature and humidity sensor, we don't just collect temperature, humidity data, but we collect a whole bunch of health parameters like battery voltage, the receive signal strength, number of reboots, number of disconnects, etc., right? So all this wealth of information allows us to have a very deep understanding about how the systems deployed by us are performing in the field at a very, very large scale, right? So in fact, that is what allows us to keep improving the systems that we are building, right? And make sure that we eventually reach a stage wherein across the huge variety of environments, the system is still stable, right? Which is why every piece of hardware that we build in comes in with a remote over-the-air update, right? Because several learnings that we get from new deployments in the field are taken in to improve the overall structure of the technology that we are building, and eventually those newer technologies are released to an existing deployment as well, and not just in the new deployment.
So moving on to the next set of questions. So next question is from Santosh. Do you also work in the OpEx model?
Yeah, I think there are a bunch of different models that exist. I believe we can get into the details of that. There are versions of OpEx model. I mean, we do performance guarantees as well. So, I mean, those are some specific business details, and audience that is interested can always reach out to us. My email address is on the screen. So please feel free to write to us, and we'll be happy to discuss different business models.
Sure. Moving on. Next question is from Praveen. Can we have hybrid systems with existing DTC and IoT devices connected to DTCs without gateways?
Okay, so the way hybrid system would work is, let's say part of the building is still operational with DDCs connected to a BACnet device, and then you bring in the gateway which connects to this BACnet device or BACnet over IP, such that that gateway gets connected to that subsystem of the building, and then part of the building where you don't have the BMS, you would connect the wireless sensors or wireless DDCs, right? Unfortunately, the existing DDCs do not support the wireless communication. So existing, you can't say that I will bring in the wireless battery power sensor and latch it onto the current DDC and make it part of the BMS. That is not possible because of the limitations of that DDC, not because of the limitations of our product.
Sure. So the next question is from Shakil. How frequently do you collect information from your sensors and meters? Are they in minutes or seconds? And how quickly do you provide relay signals to conserve energy?
So this sampling rate is completely configurable. The battery life that I mentioned, right? 2 years of battery life with 2 AAA batteries is with 30-second sampling rate, right? There are scenarios where we have gone on to do 15-second sampling rate also, and there are scenarios where we have increased this to a minute or 2 minutes as well. But our intent is to sample as fast as we would, we would want, basis the value we want to deliver, right? Because I mean, the use case that I showed, right, the compressor cycle. If you are sampling every 15 minutes, we will lose out on those compressor cycles. So it depends on the use cases. In several of our machine learning algorithms, we would want to sample perhaps at a sub one minute level for those machine learning algorithms to work.
The next question is from Santosh. What is the typical ROI in case CAPEX model in a building of, let's say, gross leasable area of 1 million square?
Yeah, I think across our projects, we have broadly seen this ROI range of 12 to 18 months. And that's applicable to whether it's a small retail store or a very large building as well. Because typically the savings depend on, let's say, how inefficiently you were currently running. So if you have a building which didn't have a BMS at all, right? Or your actuators were sort of digital actuators, only on and off. You didn't have the analog actuators, etc., right? Then it default implies that you are wasting a lot more, and therefore, let's say your savings will be perhaps even 15–20%, right? But if your building already was with a BMS, but with static set points, etc., we believe that once we bring in our dynamic set points, you can still realize anywhere from 6–10% of energy savings, right? So looking at these broader spectrum, we still can get, and of course, a building which already has a BMS, you would require a lot less investment because several of those BMS subcomponents can be reused, right? Versus a building which didn't have a BMS would require more investment, but then the savings will also be more, right? So typically the ROI period stands uniformly between, let's say, 12–18 months.
The next question is from Manish. Is there any possibility of the wireless mesh interfering with any other electronic equipment or any other harmonics?
So, couple of things. One, harmonics are in the electrical system. So think of it this way, that we are operating in the same 2.4 gigahertz band that Wi-Fi operates in, right? Now, if the hospital already has Wi-Fi, then our mesh will also, and that Wi-Fi doesn't impact the operation of different equipment, then our wireless system will also not impact, because we are operating in the same frequency band as Wi-Fi, right? So if the hospital feels that creating a Wi-Fi network, which today many hospitals have a Wi-Fi network across their hospitals, right? So if a building feels that having a Wi-Fi network is safe, then having this wireless network is also equally safe.
The next question is from Bala. What is the total power savings on an average in percentage terms?
I think it's just a repeat. Typically, we have seen anywhere from 8 to 15–20% of power savings also, right? But I mean, even with a building which was actually very well operated, had a fully functional BMS, we were able to squeeze out 6–8% easily.
Next question is from Kalpesh. Gateway to cloud links are a challenge, and IoT SIMs are not very reliable. Facility LANs may or may not be available. So what do you see as a reliable solution to this?
So we are actually, by the way, our gateway supports Ethernet, Wi-Fi, and 4G, all of them. IoT SIMs typically are not 4G SIMs. These are 2G SIMs, and many of the network providers are now sort of removing their 2G network, and that's why the reliability of IoT SIMs is reducing, but 4G is still reasonably reliable. What we are now additionally building is, so by the way, even in 4G, we have dual SIM connectivity, right? So we would typically put in two different operators, let's say Jio or Airtel, Airtel or Vodafone, Jio or Vodafone, depending on which operators reasonably work within the building. And our systems can automatically switch from one operator to another. That's one level of redundancy. We are actually now adding in a second layer of redundancy over there, whereby we can take the Ethernet or the Wi-Fi from the building operator also, and that can act like a second pipe for us. So if, let's say, both the SIM cards are not working, then we can switch to the Ethernet or the Wi-Fi network of the building, or vice versa as well, right? So we are adding greater and greater resiliency to make sure that these systems can be operated in a huge variety of built environments.
The next question is, how do you think on cybersecurity as a lot of IoT devices are proliferating? Do you have security standards such as IEC 62443 in place?
Yeah, so this question of security often comes in. I think the easiest way to answer that is that, look, the communication between sensors and the gateway is a secure communication similar to HTTPS. And then the communication between the gateway and the cloud is also HTTPS, right? So if you guys feel comfortable doing your bank transactions from your laptop, sitting anywhere in the world, right? And bank transactions are financial transactions, right? Which anybody would be most concerned about. So if you guys feel comfortable doing those bank transactions, then you should feel comfortable doing these sensor data communication and control communication as well, because the security is pretty much similar, right? I mean, we are using same HTTPS as the bank would do.
There are a lot of other questions on that, but I think due to paucity of time, we are already hitting the mark. And we will take one more question, and then rest of the questions will reach out to the audience with the answers. So please bear with us. So the last question is from Vinay. Which BMS systems does your wireless sensor support? Like Schneider Structureware. So are there any specific limitations, or how is it?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. I would answer it this way, that if the vendor supports a standard BACnet IP, then we also will be able to interface with that. So in the past, we have interfaced with Siemens, Schneider, Trane, Honeywell, Johnson Control, all of these. But often what happens is, I would not say often, I mean, sometimes what happens is that the SIs would put in some proprietary things, right, within the BMS that is deployed in the building, right? Once you deviate from the standard BACnet over IP and start putting in proprietary things within the protocol, unless the vendor supports us, it's very hard, not just for us, but anyone else to talk to that device, right? Or to talk to that system. So if the system is fully compliant with the standard BACnet over IP, we should be able to connect to that system irrespective of the manufacturer.
Sure. So that concludes the Q&A for the day. And as said, we will revert to the rest of the questions over the paucity of time we have not been able to.
Sure. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. The idea for today's webinar again was to go a little bit into more technology aspects of the BMS and IoT-based BMS rather than purely business-based aspects. Hope it gave you the flavor of what sort of tools and technologies we are using, why IoT is better than a traditional BMS, and why that is the way to go for the future, right? Both for retrofit, small buildings, as well as the large buildings. Thank you very much for joining again, and have a nice day.
So thank you, Amber, and thank you all the attendees. Before we close the webinar, I would just like to announce again that there would be a small survey, feedback survey that you will receive once the webinar is closed. And we would love to hear your feedback. So please feel free to answer the questions. Thank you, everyone, for your participation and very healthy Q&A.